Hello and welcome to another episode of It's the Vibe podcast. I'm your host, Megan. I hope you are so well. I have a really special epi today, and it's so funny because every time I sit down to record an episode, I have like a whole list on my notes of things that like come into my head. I'm like, oh, I could do a potty episode on that, whatever. I went through that today and I was just like, none, not a single one of these I want to talk about today. So then I just finished reading my book, and then I came back and sat down and I was just like, you know what? There is something that has been mirrored back to me so deeply in the last couple of weeks that I feel like this is the perfect thing to talk about, and that is vulnerability. So obviously, if you clicked on this episode, you know what it's called, but we're talking about unmasking strength, and I use that in quotations, strength, and embracing vulnerability. So find a comfortable space, grab a drink, and let's bloody do it together. Or if you're in the car, just focus on the road around you, but, listen to me as we go. So I'm going to preface this episode by saying I am not a subject matter expert at this. In fact, I can really suck at being vulnerable. And if you're in my life, you'll know this to be 1,000% true. And it's funny because I will do anything for anyone, like in any kind, like no matter what, right? I am always there for people. I'm always the person that you turn to if you need anything. But I don't offer the same in return for people. I won't allow people to be there for me and allow people to kind of see that I fall apart completely, like a lot of the time, right? And I think actually probably my most uttered phrase is, nah, all good, I've got it, no problems, whatever. So it's an interesting predicament I find myself in being in a relationship with somebody who is absolutely willing to the point of almost demanding to be there for whatever I need. So one, I was very, very single, obviously, before we got together for a very long time. And two, I guess I almost pride myself. I used to pride myself on how independent I was, which is interesting because it's kind of the strength that I had to be independent enough to get to where I've gotten to in my life obviously was very necessary for that time of my life. And you go through seasons and different energies and all of that kind of stuff, right? But there is some point where you can't continue to live like that. There are points where you can't, and I've used this analogy or metaphor, whatever you want to call it before, where it's like you can't keep sprinting. At some like point, you're either going to have to stop or you're going to have to stop and slow down a little bit. Okay, so if any of this is resonating with you, I'm going to chat you through what my advice is, and I'm going to kind of talk you through what I've been doing to kind of embrace this whole vulnerability thing, and take off my, strong independent gal mask, and really opt for more of like a softer approach to not just my relationship, but to everybody in my life. Okay, now this was mirrored back to me, as I said, so dramatically. Last Friday this was. So I am part of a mastermind, the Trailblazer group, and those gals, they hold me accountable, and it's amazing, right? So the analogy and being the visual person that I am, that Katie used with me, is she said, think of it like a tower. Right? So you've got a castle or a tower, and you're the person sitting right in the middle of the tower. Now, you've obviously got a big fat moat around it, and you've got crocs and you've got sharks and you've got whatever. You've got a big fat drawbridge that is so, wound up. You've got archers sitting at the top of this thing. Basically, we're like willing and ready to attack whatever the fuck it is that comes into your life. Now, this is necessary when you have things to attack in your life and things that you don't want in your life and whatever. So that works perfectly. But when you don't, and it is literally somebody as amazing as my boyfriend who is coming in and like trying to knock his way through and just being like, hey, I'm here. And I'm just like, nah, like, archers draw, where my Crocs at? That drawbridge ain't coming down. It's not really a great way or person to be with, right? And, I can be a real bitch when I want to be, and not even intentionally. So before we dive in totally, let's talk about, let's clarify vulnerability and what it actually means. So it's often seen as a weakness, right? So that is what I saw it for. For so many years of my life, I saw it as a weakness whereby people, if I was, open and vulnerable with my struggles or with whatever, it would give them, the ability to judge me or to think differently of me. Or I really held on to that persona of being the strong, independent person. But if you deny that and instead you kind of, I guess, put up a wall, one, you're not really fucking very relatable. And two, people are going to see you like having the personality of like, I don't know, like I was gonna say like a snail. I don't know why, but like a shit person, like somebody that they just can't resonate with, can't relate to, can't have an open conversation with. But when you are open and vulnerable with people, it's really sort of like the birthplace of creativity and connection, and even growth, actually. So vulnerability is about being honest with ourselves and with others. So showing up as we are and owning our stories and loving every part of those stories, right? I have a great example of this as well. I was going through my phone because I'm, oh my God, the biggest drama in my life at the minute. Like, first world problems is that I got a new work phone. I got a new phone, sorry. So my old phone I'm using as my work phone because I'm sick of having content on both phones. And I was going through all my pictures because I was trying to transfer them across. It was a whole thing. And I found a picture of myself when this was like, I want to say like a year ago, probably, when my diet was 100, my gym habits were 100, and oh my God, did I look bloody good. And then I look at myself now and I'm just like, well, we got a little bit of work to do here, Megs. And I don't shame myself for it. I don't do anything other than just meet myself where I'm at. Like I know exactly, why I look and feel the way that I do. And me just talking to other people about that is just like, yeah, oh my God, yes. Like, whether you want to call it winter weight or whether you call it like whatever, and it doesn't even have to be about weight, but it's just about, being open and having somebody next to you being like, when I sit down, my belly does this, or when I try and put my jeans on, I like do this, right? So it's just fun. And, looking back on the people that I've come into contact with and any scenario that I have, I guess, been in my life, one thing I am very good at is meeting myself where I'm at and pulling the piss out of myself for it. So if you've ever walked on a footpath with me, you will know that I will trip over like a flat surface. And I just own that part of myself. And I feel like that's almost like my superpower is that I will own where I am at. I am not super self-conscious in the way that I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so embarrassed about this. I very rarely get embarrassed for that reason. Right. So that is one part of myself where I'm so open and so whatever. But then there's this other side of me that is just like, armored guards, you ain't getting in here. Again, how relatable are both of those sides of myself? Are you going to laugh because I'm so openly able to pull the piss out of myself? Or are you going to be like trying to like relate to, my work life or my whatever life where I'm just like so stone cold nothing and you get nothing from me? Like it's annoying. So instead of being the tough one all the time, like I said, that is so relatable. And you look at these people and you're like, oh, they've got their lives together and I don't, and whatever, which is bullshit because nobody does. And I also like to recognize that we wear different masks in different situations and we move between different energies all the time. And I'm not going to go into this because I'm going to get a guest on here who is going to be able to talk you through this like you would not believe. So I'm talking about light and dark masculine energies. So when you live on one side or the other or, whatever, you can go too far to the left, you can go too far to the right, whereas you kind of want to get a nice balance because if you live on the side of like, I don't need no mans or like, persons in my life, I can fucking do it all, you're going to push people out of your life pretty quickly. But when you allow, it's almost like a gift of allowing people to help you as well, because if you put yourself in this situation like I do, I love to help people. It actually makes me feel really good being able to help people and do things for people. But it's interesting in the fact that I find it so hard to let others help me. Like, what the fuck? Like, seriously. Anyway, so let's talk about the power of vulnerability. Now, you might be wondering, why should I embrace vulnerability, Megs? Well, I'll tell you why. It's really authentic living and connections. When we allow ourselves to be so vulnerable, we open the door to genuine connections and experiences rather. So I think Brené Brown said this the best. So vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. Right? If you really think about that, I'm just going to read that again. So vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up and be seen when we have no control over the outcome. There are no guarantees in this life. And, if you're my dad, you say, oh, death and taxes. But there is one guarantee in this life, and that's change. Okay? So there are no other guarantees. You can go into something head first, think that it's going to absolutely work out for you, and it might not. You can think, oh, fuck, I don't know what I'm doing, and things will work out amazingly better than you had ever expected. Right? But it's the showing up of it. And why I think this whole behind the scenes on social media is taking off at the moment, and like the influence of like vibes, like perfect life is kind of like, it's not in at the moment. It's because people like to see, call it the struggle behind the human, because it humanizes people and it humanizes what we deem to be perfection before. Okay. And what I like to compare this to is, there's people in your life that it's just so effortless to be around them. Like, you don't have to try to do anything other than just to be yourself. And when you leave them, you feel like super energized and those interactions, and then opposed to like meeting, whether it's new people or maybe it's a group of people that you don't really connect with as well, and trying to find common ground with someone that's behaving like basically like a stone cold assassin that you have no common interest with, that you have no whatever with. And it's just like, how the hell am I supposed to forge a relationship with this person when I can't get anything back from them? And it's exhausting. So I have a few personal stories, and they're very personal, where embracing vulnerability has made such a significant impact on my life. Now, from facing fears to opening up to others, these moments have definitely shaped my journey and allowed me to connect with others on a deeper level. So, as I said before, I am very well known as the person that will do everything for herself, little Miss Independent, and I loved living in that stereotype for the longest time. And like, admittedly, I still do. I like to be able to do things for myself. I like to not have to rely on others, and I like to live my life the way that I live it. But being in a relationship or having people in your life that want to be there for you and want to support you and want to know what's going on in your life, that doesn't last for too long. So in my relationship, and I'm going to like say this very honestly and openly, that being with a 35-year-old woman who has only ever had herself to rely on in a relationship is not an easy one to give in. So let that drawbridge down and tell the crocs in the moat just to chill the fuck out. We are safe. We are all good here. So I'm used to doing everything for myself. And that includes not allowing my family to support me. Like even my parents, I had a shitful week this week with my endo pain, it's probably one of the worst weeks I've had in a long time. And I didn't even tell my parents because I just like didn't want the, like, what do you need? What do you want me to come and do? Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Right? Which is how ridiculous, first of all, because how fucking lucky am I that I have family in my life, people in my life that are willing to do whatever to help me. So instead of still living in that like gratitude fact, it literally is like an immediate attack on my independence. It's like, oh, people can't think I can't do this for myself. People are going to think like whatever. Like, shut up. Like, I'm so frustrating to myself sometimes. And it's the same in the work sense. I will work for 14-hour days to get stuff done instead of asking for help. So being independent, as I said, has served me and gotten me to such an amazing point in my life. And I've had to work really hard to get to where I am. And I've had to kind of live in this life, but it's got to me to where I am. But like now I'm kind of here instead of like, okay, cool. Who can I have around me that's going to, make the days better, make the days more fun, make the days less just about, work and doing all of the things. And so then obviously, yes, open to a new relationship now. I have the most amazing people around me now who I trust with my deepest, darkest fears and deepest, darkest secrets, and even talking to them about my business and what I'm kind of going through, even though they may not completely be able to relate, the fact that I'm sort of like sharing this and opening the kimono, as it will, just makes me more of a person that they understand, I suppose. And I feel so much more supported, like one, because I actually asked the support, but two, they've kind of got the whole picture, coming along, on the journey with me, I suppose. And it's not uncommon that when I do my weekly updates on here and I say about things that I've been through, or I talk, in a podcast about a particular example that you can kind of relate to when I'm talking about a particular topic, and I have my friend, like my closest friends, say to me, well, I didn't know you were going through that, or like, I didn't know that was a thing for you, which is so insane to me because I'm just like, oh my God, am I seriously like that much? And I don't do this on purpose, mind you. I am I guess now that I'm like, it's been highlighted to me, I'm trying so much harder. But before it wasn't like, I'm not going to tell anybody anything. It was literally like, I just got so used to picking myself up and pulling myself through life that I was just inadvertently not, letting anybody support me. So like I said, now it's been pointed out, we try much better. And if you've ever read You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, and if you go to the endo part, which I'm going to read for you right now. So endometriosis, the probable cause. So like, I don't know if you've ever read this book, but it's fucking insane. So endometriosis, the probable cause, according to Louise Hay, is insecurity, disappointment, and frustration. Right? Insecurity, disappointment, and frustration. So if you are insecure about something or you're frustrated by someone, you immediately internalize all of that, which is, I really truly believe these days that there is, so many other external factors around why we cause dis-ease in our bodies. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this because this is like some woo-woo shit. But yeah, it's not sort of just as simple as this is what I've got and this is, the reasons why. It's more of a case of like, this is what emotions I'm effectively holding into my body. And I don't release them and I don't do anything to, move the flow of emotion through my body. I hold it all in. So no wonder I fucking struggle a little bit. Anyway, like I said, we're trying to do better. So why do we do this? And the simple answer is fear. And overcoming that fear is really, it's really hard. Like, and again, take it from somebody who is like struggles with this on the daily. So it's supernatural to fear vulnerability. Like, it's almost like you take you back to your school days where like kids are really mean to you and, you get like left out at lunchtime or you get teased for whatever. I feel like that's half the reason why we're so not willing to be open and vulnerable with people. It's just like bloody childhood, like school day trauma that's like lived with us. But it's important to recognize that it's okay to be imperfect. But none of us know what the fuck we're doing in this life. We're all trying our best, doing our thing, going along, whatever, right? So embracing vulnerability requires courage and self-compassion, in my humble opinion. So I'll go through some strategies to overcome that fear, including the importance of self-acceptance and the role of gratitude, of course. Wouldn't be a podcast with Megs without talking about gratitude in fostering vulnerability. So vulnerability in relationships is obviously the glue that really holds everything together. And I'm talking about friendships, romantic relationships, or family ties. Opening up and being authentic and just being you, your amazing self, strengthens the bonds that we share. So I'll discuss the role that vulnerability plays in building trust and fostering intimacy. But how else do you bond with someone if you can't find something in common, like I said, or you just can't relate to somebody, or if someone walks along that like their life's perfect and you're just like, oh my God, I don't have my shit together. Like, you know what? We just don't relate to those people. And I want to stress one part of this is that you need to make sure that you have that squad of people in your life. Like, I'm talking like, one of my greatest flexes in life is my squad. I have the most amazing support crew ever, and I'm still a little bit of a bitch about it sometimes, but you need to have those people that you're open and, I guess being courageous enough to be vulnerable is one thing, but having the right squad around you where it sort of cultivates that, safe space for you to be vulnerable is another thing. So I will preface it by saying that. So I'm going to give you some practical ways to incorporate vulnerability into your daily lives. And I even have it on my to-do list every single day. How am I going to be open to receive today? And it's so bizarre for me to say that. It's basically like, how am I open to let somebody do something for me today? Or how am I open to, ways of lowering that drawbridge and allowing good things to flow to me? Because it's a two-way street, right? If you're boarded up and you've got these big fat barricades around you, as well, like the bad stuff can't get in, but neither can the fucking good stuff. So we need to add ease and we need to just chill out. And it's so funny. Oh my God. The first time that Katie said that to me, that analogy and that visual that I had in my head was of Shrek, and when Fiona was in the castle and then Donkey came in, and I was just like, oh my God, that is just so perfect. Like like locked in this town, Little Miss Independent, and life is basically, or actually guarded by a dragon too, so that was another element added in there. So yes, you can again have fun with these and make them lighthearted, but I know that there is so much emotion and so much meaning and so much power behind allowing yourself to be able to do this. So how do we cultivate vulnerability in our lives? Well, let me tell you. So the first one is to celebrate your achievements and your failures, right? You need to acknowledge and celebrate your successes, no matter how small. And I've done a whole episode on that because I believe that so wholeheartedly that if you do not clap for yourself, like, don't expect others to clap for you. You need to be the fucking one at the start of, like, the round of applause starting that shit, because when you do awesome things, celebrate yourself. But also embrace your failures as opportunities for learning and growth rather than reasons for shame. Now, again, speaking from somebody who is the queen of shame spirals, right? I have really embraced my failures, especially in the last just like 9 months of being in business with myself. I've embraced things that I've learned, and it's just, instead of being like, you're an idiot, like you should know that, going from a complete beginner's mindset and being like, okay, cool, that's interesting, I learned that, that's great. Right. And you might be like, how does this relate to vulnerability? And I'll tell you why. If you can celebrate your successes and not see yourself as bragging or as being anything else, you're going to have the squad around you to support you. And similarly, embracing your failures and as opportunities for learning and growth, right? And if you're not shaming yourself, you're going to, again, inspire people to be like, oh, wow, she's been open and honest about what happened in her day, but she's picked herself up, learned lessons, and she's moved on. That shit is fucking inspirational. So share those stories. Open up to a trusted friend or family member about your experiences and both your triumphs and struggles. And that is just so important. And be genuine and transparent in your communication, allowing others to see the real you, because you're awesome. And share lessons you've learned from difficult moments, emphasizing growth and resilience. So we're all resilient, whether you think that you are or not. We have, this thing called life. She's a tricky one. So, and, there's all these sayings out there, like you've survived 100% of your hardest moments and all of those things. And it's true. You absolutely have. And, will there be ones that come in the future? No fucking doubt, right? But you grow and you learn from it and you build that resilience. Amazing. Now, my next piece of advice is to practice self-compassion. Now, this is one that I need to remind myself of, but treat yourself with kindness and understanding, especially during challenging times. And acknowledge that imperfection is a part of being human and that it's okay to make mistakes, and use positive self-talk and avoid harsh self-judgment. Basically, what I'm saying here is when you're being open and when you're being vulnerable with people, if you don't always get it right, don't talk to yourself like shit. Don't be a bitch to yourself. Don't do any of that, right? We only love here. And talk to yourself like you would your best friend in these times. Now, this is a big one for me and something that Cody will know to be absolutely true, right? And my next point is to express your needs. Whether they be the need for understanding when you might not be as vulnerable as you'd like to be, or communicating your needs is to be like, okay, this is kind of what I really would like now that I have somebody in my life that I can ask for this effectively. So communicate your needs and desires openly with others. And this doesn't have to be just in a personal relationship. This can be in a professional relationship as well. And really allow yourself to be vulnerable by expressing when you need support, reassurance, or understanding. We all need it. Like the toughest person in this world still needs reassurance, okay? Still needs support and still needs understanding. So again, whether that's in a work sense, in a relationship sense, in a friendship sense, or whatever, the more you communicate and are open with those people around you and saying, look, this is what I need right now, it just basically stops the confusion between the two. Because if you're acting a particular way, right, and what you're subconsciously doing is trying to seek their reassurance, but you're being a bitch about it, you're not going to get it. It's not going to be received on the other end. Like, unless you have ESP with this person or this person well enough to know when she starts acting like this, that means actually she needs this from me. Okay. So people will get there quicker if you just fucking tell them what you need. And remember that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, but it is a sign of strength. Because it's actually easier to sit there and suffer in your own whatever. It's actually harder, right, to go and ask for help. So that is a sign of your strength muscle. And what I do recommend is checking back in with yourself. So whether it's like journaling or meditation or whatever, and see how you're going, allowing yourself to receive more by being open and vulnerable. And like whether it's a weekly check-in or like whatever check-in with yourself, if this is something that you really want to make a big part of your life, then you really have the ability to be able to go back and look at your daily interactions and think to yourself, okay, was I 100% myself in that interaction? If not, was I able to be 100% myself in that interaction? And if not, how can I approach it differently in the future? How did I act a certain way when I actually was trying to, get a particular reaction out of somebody? And it wasn't the reaction that I wanted that I got. Again, how do I open the lines of communication there? So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that this resonated, and I hope that you can really understand the power that vulnerability has over creating the most beautiful relationships with the people in our life. So as I wrap up this episode, just remember that embracing vulnerability is it's not a one-time event, right? You can't do it once and be like, fuck no, I've nailed this, right? It's an ongoing journey. And it's really about allowing ourselves to be seen, heard, and valued, which at the end of the day, in this human experience, is all we fucking want. So let's continue to unmask our strength, foster connections, and live wholeheartedly. And to the guys who are with hyper independent gals like myself, we love you so much. We don't mean to shut you out when we do. And keep knocking down on that drawbridge door, because she's going to come down eventually. So I hope you have a beautiful rest of the week. I love you so much, and I will see you in the next episode.